It's not a joke. It's what I like to call a lack of self-control. So back in May, I suggested making a video about The Haunted Mansion because I love that movie, and honestly, I'm always looking for an excuse to talk about it. 90% of my script writing process is me just cutting out gratuitous references to it. And that is why Hunger Games fans are racist. Kind of reminds you of how Ramsay from The Haunted Mansion is really a metaphor for greed, doesn't it? Or how The Haunted Mansion and Drag Me to Hell are kind of the same movie, but in a way that they really complement each other instead of insulting each other. Or it's really unnecessary to include all of that, and I don't think Hunger Games fans being racist has anything to do with Ramsay being a metaphor for greed. So you agree? What? You think Ramsay's a metaphor for greed? Recently, when I did the June poll, I had to literally fight the urge to not include it as one of the options. And the only reason I managed not to include it again is because I didn't want to see it lose another fight. I get sensitive. So I packed up that idea and decided to leave well enough alone. As we say in Atlanta, there's no sense dwelling in our losses. We just keep on lighting the lights and following the formalities. They moved away the highway. In the end though, I just couldn't stand not talking about the Haunted Mansion. And to be honest, this is more for me than it is for you guys. And you guys are great. Thank you for what you do. I really appreciate it. But this is about me. So today I'm going to talk about why I love The Haunted Mansion, why I actually genuinely think it's a great movie, and how easy it is for people to dismiss things. The Haunted Mansion came out in 2003. I was about 6 or 7. Who knows? Not me. You might be thinking that the only reason I like the movie as much as I do is because I'm looking at it with nostalgia-tinted glasses on. But need I remind you that I once owned a DVD copy of Raise Your Voice that I watched every day and genuinely loved. Need I also remind you that when I watched the movie again about a year ago, I was shocked to realize it was more akin to hot garbage to me now. The reason I love revisiting art, even when I hate it, is because I'm almost always convinced that I'm just not ready for certain things yet. FKA Twigs is one of my favorite musicians and has been for years. In fact, her set at Afropunk in 2019 was one of the last live music shows I went to before the panty hit. She was amazing and ethereal, and it was kind of life-changing to see her perform live. But when I first heard LP1, I was not a fan. I didn't get it. I couldn't wrap my head around it, and I didn't even listen to it all the way through. But I didn't give up on her or her sound. I said to myself, I don't think I'm ready for this yet. I'll come back to it later. Fast forward 6 months, I had new life experiences and a new mindset, and I was closer to being the person I was meant to be. And I listened to LP1 again, and what do you know? I fucking loved it. You would think I never heard music before, it felt so amazing. So that's why I watch Train to Busan every year, because I'm convinced that one year I'll love it. That's why I watch my favorite movies often to see if I'm still buying it, and I usually am, but I don't know, it's been a while since I watched The Irishman. I could hate it now. Yeah, no, it's still great. All that said, I watched The Haunted Mansion a lot, well into my adult years. I had a DVD copy when I was a child, which I watched so much that I think I broke the disc. Don't know if that's even possible, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I replaced it and went on with my life. Around high school age, we started moving around a lot, and in one of our moves, I lost the Haunted Mansion again. But because so much of our stuff was in storage for a little bit, I didn't notice it was missing until after I got home from my first year of college for summer break. And guess what I did? I bought another copy. Maybe I'm biased. Maybe this movie has some kind of weird hold on me. I don't fucking know. The Haunted Mansion is another result of Disney running out of ideas. A movie based on a ride at the Disney amusement parks. Apparently this ride was popular enough for a lot of anticipation to be built up surrounding this movie, and that could have played a big part in why people dismissed it so easily after it came out. It couldn't live up to their theme park expectations. Fortunately, I didn't have that problem because I've never been to a Disney amusement park ever in my life. We were broke as fuck, what can I say? I turned out fucking amazing. My mom killed that shit. Anyway, the concept of the Disney ride is as simple as it sounds. I think you ride a dune buggy through this mansion and you come across some fake ghosts, and I don't know, Let's just talk about the movie. Even though I know jack shit about the actual ride, I'd say the movie adaptation is an impressive feat. It transports would-be writers and now audience members into the shoes of one Evers family. The matriarch and patriarch, Jim and Sarah, are very successful real estate agents, and Jim in particular is a workaholic whose job is never done. Even though he promises his family they will have a work-free weekend, he makes a detour to visit a mansion that someone called Sarah about earlier. That's how they're lured into the Gracie estate and welcomed by somewhat distant hosts. Spoiler alert, the hosts are distant because they're all dead and they're all ghosts. I really hope I didn't just ruin it for you. A storm breaks out while they're looking around the estate, and pretty soon it's impossible to leave, what with the storm swelling the river.
How's that?
I mean, the river has flooded the road. This is such a small thing that I always loved, I'm not sure why. So now they're stuck in this mansion overnight with a bunch of spirits, and with one particularly evil spirit who's trying to kill them all, but especially Sarah. It turns out that getting to this estate wasn't just an accident. Sarah Evers is the spitting image of Elizabeth, Gracie's true love, who is thought to have taken her own life centuries earlier. Ramsey, the butler, is trying to lure Sarah into the mansion so she can replace Elizabeth and so Gracie can be happy in his eternal afterlife. But he didn't account for Sarah coming with her entire family, which complicates things because Jim keeps fudging up his plan and the kids are finding out what really happened to Elizabeth because of this little spirit ball.
It's a ghost ball.
You're right, I forgot. Now that you know what the movie is about, it's time for me to talk about why this simple, family-driven Disney ghost story is one of my favorite ghost stories ever. I said ever. I really have problems, don't I? In no particular order, but numbered because numbers are nice. Number 1. Eddie Murphy. Like most people, I grew up watching a lot of Eddie Murphy movies. I remember watching Life when I was like 5 years old. I'm pretty sure one of my earliest memories is
You gonna eat your cornbread?
I watched a lot of Dr. Dolittle because I loved Raven-Symoné and I loved Kyla Pratt and I loved Aaliyah, who made Are You That Somebody for the Dr. Dolittle soundtrack. Soundtracks used to really bump, didn't they? Eddie Murphy movies were a constant in my house, and I'm pretty sure he was one of the first celebrity names I came to know. If not for his appearance in this movie, I'm honestly not sure if I would have seen it as soon as I did. The appeal for me wasn't just that it was a ghost story, but also that it starred Eddie Murphy, who I was extremely familiar with. His appearance in it was also exciting because at that age, I'd seen my fair share of horror stories for kids, you know, like the Goosebumps series and The Witches or Halloween Town. But aside from Don't Look Under the Bed, which was my second favorite Disney Channel original movie ever, I hadn't seen many black characters in horror, especially not in horror for kids, which leads me to the second reason I loved it so much. Number 2, horror noir. It was just really nice to see a black family running from and outsmarting ghosts, okay? I mean, I'm a simple gal. I see a black family, I click. Well, no, that's not true. I avoided them like the plague. Number 3, ghost with a motive. I love ghost stories. I think they're great. I love the slow, eerie atmosphere and the steady build of discomfort. I love the music in ghost stories because it's soft and ethereal, but also it makes me want to look over my shoulder. In all the horror subgenres, ghost stories aren't at the top of my list or whatever, but I really enjoy most ghost movies. Not these ones. But I rarely ever see ghosts with an actual motive. Most of the time it's something vague and generic, like the ghost is evil and it wants to spread evil, or it wants your soul for financial gain, a tax write-off. I don't know. And even though I'm totally more than okay with vague motives in horror, I don't need to know why Michael Myers wants to kill, just show me the kills. Thank you. I really like that there was this whole complex murder mystery thing taking place at the same time. So we have a villain with a complex motive, and I don't think this movie gets enough credit for trying to build an engaging story. Kid-friendly horror. This is supposed to be a horror movie for kids, so there has to be a really delicate balance between the scares and the humor, and I really think Eddie delivers that. I was terrified of everything that happened in this movie, especially in the mausoleum, but gleefully so. I mean, I loved horror, I like being scared, but I also felt comforted because it was Eddie Murphy, and I knew if I felt scared, I wouldn't feel that way for long because something funny would happen soon. It's interesting because this is actually my main reason for hating It Chapter 2 so much. There's too much comedy in a gory horror and the de-aging effects are really distracting, and sometimes it's scarier to look at than Pennywise. But in a movie designated for kids, I find that balance is inoffensive and also necessary. I don't know if I could have gotten through all the corpses in the mausoleum reanimating if not for Eddie Murphy immediately following it with this.
Get back into bed! Go back to bed! I'm Jim Evers from Evers Real Estate. What's your name?
Number 5. I've never been to Disneyland. Or World. so I have nothing to compare it to. And some might say that if I had been on the ride before, I would hate the movie because it doesn't do it justice, but woulda, coulda, shoulda, who gives a shitta? Still, I never felt like the adventure of a theme park ride was missing from the story. There were many moments when I felt like I was on a ride, like the carriage scene, or when Jen goes down the corridor and this happens. And I guess this goes back to what I said earlier. As someone who hasn't been on the ride, I felt like this was a good attempt at translating that into a film, and I think the result is solid. This movie was pretty much eviscerated upon its release, and I'm happy that when I was watching it for the first time, I didn't know anyone hated it. I know people hate it now and it doesn't have any effect on me. I mean, I am making this after all, but I'm happy I didn't know this when I was a kid. It would have been so easy for me to dismiss it just because people told me to. But this is really a gem of a ghost story, and I have a lot of respect for it. It's fun and a little creepy and amusing and cute at the end there. Yeah, that part. Anyway, I like it. I don't care. And yes, I'm still making the actual video that really won the poll. I just could not help myself. And guess what? I'm making the new edition one too. June, I have no self-control apparently. I'll be back to my normal lazy self in July.